Hey everyone, it's Andrea. I am just checking in with you because I've been having a lot of energizing conversations with other journalists, historians, organizers, activists, and people are, despite everything, gearing up for the 2026 midterms. And I know that seems very far-fetched because of the chaos and gaslighting and bot farms and gleeful fascism and the Charlie Kirk mythologizing, martyrdom, everything. It's horrifying. I understand that. But we do live in a very innovative country of Americans who understand another side of our story, including the proud tradition of welcoming immigrants, of being innovative, and of being a liberator for Europe, not those war criminal illegal invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan by war criminal George W. Bush. That's not what I'm talking about. But the World War II storming the beaches of Normandy, putting our lives on the line, sacrificing for a greater good, Nazi hunting, being proud to fight for the Union, to abolish slavery through a united popular front against ignorant, mouth-breathing traitors. America does have another story that went alongside the other story of gleeful fascism that built this country through slavery, through the genocide of Native Americans. There are also groups of progress, and that tradition exists today. I witness it, I am proudly part of it, and people are being creative and resilient, and they are doing the damn work. And many of these folks, you'll never know their names. They don't want you to know their names. They're working in the dark, heads down, not for glory, not for fame, not for online clout, but for a livable, breathable future for all. And you are among them too. That is why you listen to the show, because Gaslit Nation was your early warning system. We stuck our necks out and said what needed to be said, and we paid a price. We got hit pieces from everybody, people trying to discredit us, label us, all those things. We announced a pre-January 6th coup special here on this show. People thought we were bonkers, we were right. Again, we were your early warning system. Now every damn podcast sounds like us because we were right, and I'm telling you now, there are Americans, there are all sorts of people across this country who are fighting for a livable, breathable future. You are among them, and we're going to do this. And yes, the midterms matter. And yes, people are starting now, right now, with the midterms. We're going to have so many conversations coming up in these weeks about that, including this week and at today's Gaslit Nation Salon at 4 p.m. Eastern. But first, I want to share with you in this special recording an excerpt of last month's book club, where Gaslit Nation listeners got together, and for the month of August, our selections were not books, but two powerful films about how art is essential, creativity is essential in our collective resistance work. And one of those films came out right on time in 2024. It's called I'm Still Here. It's a powerful story about a woman who fights back against Brazil's military dictatorship to demand justice for her dissident politician husband who was disappeared by the regime. And then she goes on to turn her grief into joy and becomes a powerful human rights lawyer that fights for indigenous groups in the Amazon. Because that's what we all have to be doing right now, turning our grief, turning our rage into powerful beauty to make our lives and other people's lives better. That's everything. And so before we get into that, I want to obviously celebrate the big news this month of September, where the wannabe Brazilian Trump, Bolsonaro, got convicted, rightfully so, by a Brazilian court for trying to violently overthrow Brazil's democracy in January 2023. In fact, it was January 8th, 2023, just 2 days after January 6th. We all know what that's the anniversary of. And where was Bolsonaro all that time when his rabid supporters were smashing glass and taking selfies in the halls of power and just stinking up the place, just like MAGA did on January 2021. Bolsonaro was in that fascist hotbed of Florida, fast becoming a hermit kingdom of people that really have no idea what's actually going on in the world. And so Bolsonaro, reportedly, his son and others around him met with Bannon in the lead up to their Brazilian attempted coup. Yes, there's always a Bannon component. And what happened was they were watching their coup play out, thinking they're going to get away with it, but of course they did not. Why did they not get away with it? Because Brazil suffered for 2 decades under military dictatorship, which eventually crumbled under corruption, under economic crisis, under popular mobilization. And what eventually happened was it transitioned through negotiations driven by the people to establish a new government, a new system. And that system of strong checks and balances, of judicial independence, prosecutor independence, all of those wonderful things ensured very blatantly that if you try to violently overthrow our government in a coup, we will get you. We will drag you to court and we will hold you and all of your criminal accomplices accountable. That's what Brazil had. Why did the US not have that? Because here in America, unlike Brazil, unlike in Ukraine, where stories of dictatorship are very, very real to Ukrainians, so that's why they are fighting so valiantly against Russian genocide, because they've lived with what the Russians did to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, the uncles and aunts that disappeared, the beloved artists throughout their history who were disappeared. When a group of people know dictatorship intimately, it's not an abstract concept in our textbooks, that's when they fight. That's when the mass mobilization prevails. White America does not have that. Instead, white America has relative prosperity in recent generations and peace, and we've been told over and over again that we are the best, that no country compares to us, America number one, and on and on. So white America has been lulled to sleep in a dangerous, unfortunately, white Americans are being forced to wake up through the reality that they themselves created. And that is inevitably going to happen. And there's nothing that Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon, Brendan Carr can do to stop that. That is the natural transition of dictatorships. They eventually crumble under their own stupidity. We could have done things the easy way, by obviously not allowing Trump to come back or ever come to power in the first place. We could have had a different attorney general than Merrick Garland. We could have had Democrats in power in 2021 who forced through the 14th Amendment, which is there for a reason. That was supposed to be a safeguard, just like Brazil's constitution has its own safeguards. The 14th Amendment was put in place back in the Civil War era to stop traitors from holding office, but that was so long ago, so abstract to white America that they didn't touch it. And it took the people forcing the conversation to finally get Merrick Garland, after 2 years in power, to build a meaningful case on January 6th. And by then, it was too late. He had waited out the clock. And in a press conference he gave after the 1-year anniversary of January 6th, he both sides the coup by saying that the Justice Department will remain independent and there's political violence on both sides, when that's not even true. The data at that point and today said the opposite. The political crisis in America is very clearly coming from the far right, and it has been for decades. And Trump made that crisis worse through his birtherism movement that put a target on the heads of the first Black president and his family. All right, so why are we here and Brazil? So why are we stuck with a coup plotter, a traitor, as president of the United States, and Brazil gets to enjoy seeing their wannabe Trump face prison, decades in prison, something like Bolsonaro faces 27 years in prison? Because they understand dictatorship, and white America is going to be forced to wake up to it in the coming years, possibly decades. if we don't stop them in the midterms, which will be our next and last. This will be the last meaningful chance to stop them, but we can stop them. And again, there are extremely smart, resilient, determined people working on this, and you should join them too. And we'll talk about ways to do that together. I'm in the fight. You are in the fight. We are the French resistance here on U.S. soil. We're going to ultimately prevail. It's going to be dark. It's going to feel hopeless. But every single liberation movement has gone through that as well. That's the process. And we're in it now together. So you're not alone. I'm not alone. We have each other. And I will see you today at the Gaslit Nation Salon at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can get the link on Patreon. It's already there. I'll drop it in the show notes if you need a refresher. For September, we're reading Harriet Tubman, The Moses of Her People by Sarah Bradford. It's a short book that includes interviews with Harriet Tubman herself. We'll discuss lessons from the general of the abolition movement. And she was also, of course, a Union spy who was the first woman to lead a military operation. So what does Harriet Tubman want us to remember? What strategies does she have for us today to overcome our own weaponized demoralization and doom scrolling, and to plant the seeds of hope and change into meaningful righteous action that we all need individually and collectively to free ourselves and free our country, not just for our own sakes and our children and the future, but the planet. I have listeners all over the world who listen to Gaslit Nation wondering, will Americans pull this off? Because if they don't, we are all screwed. Doesn't matter where we live. Le Pen's party is making a comeback in France. Nigel Farage is making a comeback in the UK, where they just had their far-right Nazi march. It's not just dark over here. The cloud is growing, but we're going to rise. We're going to push it back. And Americans, you pull your weight, okay? You get information, and you do what needs to be done now, and we can. All right, without further ado, here is our book club discussion for the month of August. Again, we chose 2 films that are incredibly inspiring. And if you want to hear the full discussion, I have the link to it in the show notes. And to hear that, join our Patreon community to support our independent journalism today, and also link up with other listeners, get bonus shows, all shows ad-free, and exclusive invites and behind-the-scenes looks at projects I have that are in development that I'm really excited about. And to get access to all that, subscribe at patreon.com/gaslit. That's patreon.com/gaslit. Discounted annual subscriptions are available, and you can give the gift of membership. Thank you to everyone who keeps Gaslit Nation going. We could not make this show without you. We're going to start this special salon where we're going to open with a discussion of 2 powerful films that have something important to say to us today here in America. The first is The Lives of Others, which came out in 2006. It's a German film. Every screenplay I've ever tried to write is The Lives of Others. I'm constantly trying to write something nearly as good, in the orbit, as close as possible to the power of The Lives of Others. It's an extraordinary film if you haven't seen it. The second is a recent film, came out this year, called I'm Still Here. You'll hear all about the making of these films, the stories they're telling us today, but I want to play the trailers because I watched these trailers this morning and I still cried. I've seen these films. I'm very well aware of these films, and I still watch the trailers and I cry. So we've gathered here together to have a good therapeutic cry. So I'm going to play this now for you, starting with The Lives of Others.
Georg Dreimann. Das ist so ziemlich unser einziger Auto, der nichts Verdächtiges schreibt. Ich würde ihn überwachen lassen. Der OTS steht ab morgen früh auf sein Zeichen für die Verwanzung bereit.
einfach nur fest. Warum tust du es denn? Weil sie dich genauso zerstören können.
Sie kennen mich nicht, aber ich kenne Sie.
Das willst du veröffentlichen?
Im Westen, mit deiner Hilfe.
Came out in 2025, and the director is Walter Salles.
Oh, Uta me look love me.
Uta me look love me.
Tac, tac, sotaque, tac, tac, chu.
Vai ficar andando no carro daquele playboy, não?
Ô pai, eu achava que playboy era quem ficava bebendo uísque, fumando charuto o dia inteiro.
Sua mãe, mulher mais linda do mundo. Seus documentos. Anda, anda!
Daqui a pouco passa.
Tá ficando perigoso demais aqui, Rubens.
Deputado Rubens Paiva.
E eu já volto, filho.
O que aconteceu? O meu marido tá em perigo. Todo mundo tá em perigo, Eunice.
Brasília tá pegando fogo. Milicos vão cair matando.
Olha, a tática do desaparecimento é uma das mais cruéis. Como é que alguém entra na tua casa, leva o teu marido, leva ele preso e depois diz: sumiu?
A comunidade internacional tá de olho nessa história.
O Estado tem questões mais urgentes do que tentar remediar o passado?
Não.
Não precisa sorrir.
Por que não?
O editor pediu. Uma foto menos feliz.
Ah, ele quer triste. Nós vamos sorrir. Sorriam.
Damn it. Ugh. All right. Gosh, I cry. I have to tell you, I'm crying. I have tears down my face. Like those two films, man. I don't even know where to get started. So, I want to do the Brazilian one first. So it just came out in 2025. I'm Still Here. The soundtrack is extraordinary. The director is Walter Salles, born extremely rich, massive amount of money, and he could do anything with that wealth. And he makes powerful art. God bless him. He made the Motorcycle Diaries, which I watched when I was just dreaming big of making Mr. Jones. And I thought, my God, if I could make any movie like that, I would be so thrilled. If I were to make a movie today, I would just go to the IMDb page, the film that lists all the credits for the website that provides credits for who makes movies. And I would go to the I'm Still Here IMDb page, and I would just hire that entire crew of artists, the editors, cinematographer. It's just such a luscious, heartbreaking, powerful film with extraordinary music, like modern pop music. And the reason why I wanted us to watch it is because that film is based on a memoir written by a son of a family. Gosh. Sorry. Anyway, so this Brazilian family, the father was a activist, member of, like, he's a congressman, and he was active in helping, just doing underground railroad
shit in Brazil, like helping people get letters, trying to figure out what happened to the disappeared, sneaking mail, sneaking like articles that were banned, like all sort of zamizat, like underground stuff that was extraordinarily dangerous. And he would just play his role in Brazil's Underground Railroad in the time of their military dictatorship in the 70s. And they came for him. Like, they just arrested him. And what they always do when they arrest you is they try to keep everybody calm. And they basically assured, he'll be back, I'll be back. And that's what they always tell you because if they told you the truth, you would be clawing out their eyeballs, right? And so that's an extremely important reminder to us today when don't give in to that false hope or any reassurance. So the courts are holding, or Trump is, Trump is, I don't know, there's just this false feeling of he can't go that far because the courts will stop him, the state governments will stop him. It is in Project 2025 and Trump's best and Stephen Miller's best interest to slow drip their terror. To not, I know everything seems very overwhelming because they're unleashing the National Guard in all these cities and they're kidnapping people off the street, but this is really a slow drip compared to where they want to take us. And they're going to talk out of both sides of their mouths, and they're going to promise us false hope, because if they told us what they ultimately want to do, we would be clawing their eyeballs out, right? And so that's what the regime wants to do. They want to do well-managed, organized terror, and that's intrinsic. That's a ingrained defense mechanism that even the bullies have. The Nazis had it. So when the trains would pull up to the concentration camps, the best fed, best taken care of, relatively speaking, prisoners would greet the prisoners that were the working slaves of the prison would greet the new train, and they'd be making jokes, cracking jokes, welcoming them. That's how they did crowd control. That's how they kept people calm. And so anyway, so this Brazilian father, congressman activist, arrested. Don't worry, he'll be back. We're just going to take him in for questioning. That's what they always tell you. That's what they always promise you. That's crowd control. They're doing that for their own defensive benefit. And instead, what happens is he's gone. Oh, Jesus, the 3-year-old. 1 second, Chloe, I forgot to lock the door. It's the last week of summer before school starts. So everybody's losing their minds right now. and I love you very much, but I'm going to physically put you in that room. Give me 1 second, 2 seconds. I love you. I love you. I love you. Go find Papa. Go find Papa. I love you. I love you. I love you. Go find Papa. Okay, so what then happens is the husband's gone. He disappears. The wife gets brought in, her daughter gets brought in, and the way they tell their story, I'm not going to give it away, but there's a bit of music. There's like a bit of song that you hear at one point during a moment of terror. And the reason why music mattered in that moment is because what we saw leading up to the point of terror, the disappearance, was just a family expressing itself. The kids dancing to Brazilian pop music, the kids excited over like their favorite Brazilian artist. So this was a family that was in their beautiful, loving nest of music, love, laughter. And then the darkness descends. So instead of the mom giving into the darkness, what she does is she instead fights, and she herself becomes one of the most powerful, renowned human rights lawyers in Brazil. And her work in trying to figure out what happened to her husband, who, like so many others, was disappeared, leads to greater reforms, greater protections for indigenous tribes in Brazil, in the Amazon, the lungs of our planet. So she turns her immense grief nightmare, into just like this extraordinary powerhouse and of course Brazil ultimately comes out of that dark chapter. They descend into another under Bolsonaro later, but the worst of it is behind them, right? And so I'm Still Here is based on a memoir written by her son, who witnessed his mom doing all this and overcoming the grief, overcoming the terror to fight for a better country. And that's everything I've ever wanted to say with every single episode of Gaslit Nation. Don't let them steal your dreams. Don't let them steal your potential. Don't let them steal your power. Like live your best life right now. Really unleash what's inside of you. Don't curl up in a ball and submit to them. When we say don't obey in advance, what that also includes is don't convince yourself, don't let them convince you that you're small, because you're not. A lot of what they play are head games, and they want a bigger shadow than they actually have. And that will lead into that discussion in the next film, because that's part of that message as well. They always want to convince you they're everywhere. They're watching you. They're obsessed with you. They're going to get you. They're going to knock on your door. You're going to get disappeared. You're going to be one of the unlucky ones. And so you try to navigate that and negotiate that by shrinking yourself and not daring big, not dreaming big, not doing everything you're put on this planet in this moment in time to do, which is be your absolute creative best self and accept the fact that you're far more powerful than you even realize. That's what she did. That's what she did in I'm Still Here. And I know I haven't said her name because I'm afraid of botching it. So let me just give you her name because we owe her that. Her name is Eunice Paiva, and she's played by Fernanda Torres, who was nominated for all the awards for Best Acting. And so Eunice Paiva became a superhero of Brazil in building a better Brazil out of its darkest hour. And that's what all of us are being called to do, wherever we are with whatever we have. And yeah, so that if you haven't seen that film, it's such a, you have to watch it. You have to watch it, and you have to hold yourself to accepting that in this moment of darkness and despair for our country, we're all morally obligated and being called to be the new generation of leaders, no matter where we are in our life, what stage that we're in, whatever field that we're in, we all have stuff around us that we could leverage right now. You know, it's something as simple, obviously, as phone calls, knocking on doors, helping people run for office, playing live music, supporting artists who are doing that to get out the vote, and so on and so on. Or just looking around in your organization, wherever you are, and making it a more inclusive, empathetic place that stands for the values we all want to share and live in. And, you know, fighting for using your voice for people that are voiceless, and so on. The list goes. Just unleash your wildest dreams right now for yourself and our country. And so that is the film I'm Still Here. Please watch it if you haven't yet. The other film, The Lives of Others, so that takes place in East Berlin under the Stasi, which was one of the largest surveillance states ever in history. And guess who got his start during this time? It was Putin. He was placed in Dresden, where he was working extremely closely with the Stasi. They were comrades in their oppression of people. What kind of oppression are we talking about? Well, in this 2007 film, The Lives of Others, directed by Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck, quite a name, he focuses on Captain Gerd Wiesler, a Stasi officer who is spying on artists, and during the course of spying on them, gets pulled by listening to them, he gets pulled into their lives, especially the tension in their romantic partnership over whether or not to be informants, whether to compromise themselves morally for their own survival under the regime, because so many friends were having their lives destroyed, were not allowed to practice as artists. Why is that? Because under communism, under the Stasi, conformity is power. Conformity is control. You look a certain way, you dress a certain way, you write a certain way, and you stick within those rigid boxes. And if you even dare to challenge the shape of those boxes, the size of those boxes, you are a dangerous individual and we will crush you. And that's what we see play out in The Lives of Others. And Putin loved it. He like loved this time. This was like his early career. And I bring him up because what ultimately happens is the Berlin Wall comes down. You have crowds of people surrounding his office in Dresden, and Putin and his colleagues, and this is not in the film, this is just giving you the historical backstory. Putin and his colleagues are hastily burning all the KGB files in their Dresden office as quickly as they can, with a mob of protesters growing outside. Putin and his comrades, they call Moscow asking for military intervention, for some sort of for protection from the people that they've been oppressing all this time, who are now coming after them because freedom is on its way. The Berlin Wall is coming down. And Putin and his team, they get the response from Moscow: silence. Moscow is silent. No response. This was a deeply traumatic moment in Putin's life. The fact that he was just left on his own and the mob was coming for him. And so Putin steps out and he addresses the crowd, and he basically talks a big game to them. He psyopses them, basically giving them the impression that they have a much larger force there than they actually do. Like, Moscow's on its way, don't you dare, we'll crush you. None of that is true. He's bluffing, but it works because he's using these tricks on people who are already beaten down by this oppressive system, and they're just now emerging out of, or have the opportunity to finally come out of. So they're still in their trauma stage, and they believe Putin and they back down. But what happens in this moment is that Putin casts an extremely big shadow, a far bigger one than he actually had in reality. And this would then set him on his course of his foreign policy, right? That's worked very well in spooking the West from not doing much to help Ukraine during critical moments where they needed it, dragging their hands, and so on. So that's the historical context of where we are in the film, The Lives of Others. Why is it such a powerful film when it comes to art? Well, just like we see in the Brazilian film, I'm Still Here, all this blooming, beautiful, bountiful music, constant like laughter, happy music with this family to show that this was a vibrant family just trying to live their lives, and then history, dictatorship gets in the way. And the music really carries the drama of the film, and it pays off in a very key moment inside the prison. And so just like music is a source of the drama in I'm Still Here, in the German film, The Lives of Others, music is what created the very thesis of this film. The filmmaker was kicking around for ideas at film school in Germany, and he was meditating on a quote by Lenin, where Lenin said that if he didn't stop, and this is Lenin, who of course launched the Russian Revolution, Lenin said that if he hadn't stopped listening to Beethoven's Appassionata, the revolution might have never happened. And so here you had the director of The Lives of Others reflecting on this and thinking, damn, if only Lenin had listened to Beethoven's Appassionata and really lost himself in the music, there would have, and just succumbed to it, like released himself into it, there would have been no Russian Revolution, no Stalin, no Holodomor, no mass purges, mass arrests under Stalin's Great Terror, and on it goes. No Cold War. And what a difference music could have made. We came so close. And so he made a film about it. Could music really transform people and release them from the oppression that they're choosing to inflict on others and themselves? This Stasi agent, as we see in The Lives of Others, is not only gleefully oppressing others, his whole life is oppressed. He's miserable, he's lonely, he's isolated, but he's living in a prison that he is helping empower. But the music that of the artist that he's spying on seeps through and infects him and opens and frees his mind, and their lives intersect in a very dramatic way, which you obviously have to watch the film. So those are two masterful films, and what they're telling us today ultimately is the villains that we are fighting, the demons that we are exercising today, they rely on our fear. Our fear is a potent, powerful weapon. And in order to inoculate ourselves, to protect ourselves, to keep the fear contained, we need art, we need music, we need laughter, we need what frees our minds, what frees our souls. And that's ultimately what unites us. And so when I talk about art is survival, going to a museum, going to a gallery, going to an art show, losing yourself on the rabbit hole of Google and watching like filmmaking essays, as I like to do, or whatever, just doing whatever you need to do, whatever your intuition is calling you to do. That is your gas mask in this moment that we're in. That is the way you're going to find your footing. That is the way you're going to remind yourself to breathe and stay focused on what really matters right now and what we all need from you. And that is to be your creative best self, to strengthen your relationship with yourself, with your intuition, and unleash what is inside of you, your wildest dreams for yourself and our country together, where they overlap. That's what we need. So remember, as dark as things are going to get, and they're going to get darker because Trump needs them to get darker. Like, he needs this manufactured chaos and because he knows he's going to be increasingly unpopular. He's someone who I will go on the record to say I fully believe that he manufactured his July 13, 2024 assassination attempt. I think that was a Trump production through and through. He needed it at the time in the polls. It really turned things around for him. And it looked so very staged. I felt that instinctively when the news broke, and everything they've done since kind of confirms it, And so he knows that he needs to orchestrate a lot of terror to destabilize us, to intimidate us, to emotionally exhaust us and beat us down. And we can't let him do that because we've got him on the ropes. In fact, he knows how deeply unpopular he is. Just a couple weeks ago at a WWF wrestling match, when they showed him in the audience on the big screen, the whole arena booed. Those are his people, and they booed him. He knows. He knows. If you look at the conservative group on Reddit, the fanboys on Reddit, the Trumpers, the MAGAs, they're freaking out over what he's doing because he looks like what, in their parlance, in their way of speaking, he looks like a big pussy. Who the fuck sends out like the National Guard to every single city unless you're scared, right? Like, it doesn't look very manly what he's doing, and he knows. So Trump is cornered. Trump is panicked, and we have to just do whatever we can to operate and reach and operate a place from our higher mind right now. Do that through art, do that through culture, do that for dreaming big and focusing on creating a lot of your own light in this time of darkness. Make something, be creative, just plant seeds of hope, plant seeds of change. That's how we're going to get through it.